Obama now buckling down in the fight against Ebola. He has nixed 2 days of fundraising and campaigning to devote full attention to the situation in Dallas and beyond. The question is, what more can the president do? And with midterm elections approaching, will these efforts be enough to silence critics? Will they even matter in the elections? Let's ask someone who knows the president well, his former press secretary and CNN senior political commentator, Mr. Jay Carney. Jay, good to see you. I hold this up for you. Do you see it?
Yes, I
New York Daily News, for God's sake, get a grip. It's just missing the man part of that borrowed quote. Not a good headline. Is it the truth? Is the administration off balance here, should have been in front, now behind?
Well, I think, Chris, whenever there's a crisis like you have now with Ebola, whenever you have a situation like ISIS in that region of the world, the problem with Ukraine, and you have these cascading problems all at once, which are very hard to control individually, let alone collectively, you get a White House and an administration that appears to be, all out and sometimes under a lot of strain. But you don't get to choose the crises that you have to deal with when you're president. All of these things land on your doorstep, and I think that in the end, this is not a political issue. It's an issue that has to be handled. That's why the president has canceled travel. That's why he's focused, now that we have cases in the United States, on taking more direct action to protect the U.S., to make sure that this crisis is one that is principally overseas and not a U.S. crisis. But there's no question that in this environment, it all washes back on the White House, and that puts them in a bad light.
Right, but it's not just happenstance. I mean, if you look at this situation, can you say who is running things right now? Every time you have a big problem, you have somebody running it. That your successor yesterday, Ernest. But just for context, sure. Jay, Josh Earnest was saying, he was referring to Lisa Monaco when he was saying, the U.S. Homeland Security Advisor to the president, that she's kind of in charge of these coordinating things. Well, if you're going to go the Homeland Security route, why isn't it Jay Johnson? Why wasn't Frieden really put out there in front? Why don't you show that there's somebody in charge?
Well, Chris, instead of being simplistic about it, let's look at the real problem. This is a domestic problem, i.e. a homeland problem, because of the case of the United States and the need to protect the United States from further, contamination.
Sure.
But it's principally an international national security problem, which is why you have a big national security element to this. You have the military and you have the foreign policy element. In that situation, ultimately, the president, because it's his administration, is in charge of all aspects. But you wouldn't want Jay Johnson running the military operation, and you wouldn't want the Defense Secretary, Chuck Hagel, running the domestic homeland operation. So I think it speaks to the global nature of the problem that you have to have a broad swath of officials involved running aspects of it. On the Homeland Security, the White House official in charge of it is certainly Lisa Monaco. On the national security front, that'd be Susan Rice, working with Defense and State. Ultimately, all of these things, again, crises that you can't control or, arise not because of actions by administration, have to be the president's responsibility, which is why I think you see the White House taking the steps that it's taking.
Well, but they're taking them late, arguably, and perception is reality. I've never seen Lisa Monaco on this. I haven't heard from her on this. And what people are scared about, I would suggest, from what we're getting back from our audience, is not that I'm going to get Ebola tomorrow. It's that I don't think the government is being straight with me about what they did before, what they know how to do now, and what they plan to do tomorrow. That does come down to leadership, and it seems like the administration could have made this easier than it has been.
Well, look, I don't think there's any question that the CDC made some mistakes. Allowing this nurse to fly was a mistake. The hospital clearly made some mistakes. But I think while people can get concerned, and they should be, because of the news that they're getting, I think it's a responsible thing to do also to make it clear that right now we're talking about cases involving healthcare workers who had direct contact with a patient with Ebola. So, again, the political reality is this is always going to hurt the incumbent White House in a situation like this when there's concern